Well, we want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for this very, very important discussion. It's a discussion that includes leaders in our schools, especially our school districts. So we're pleased to have school board presidents and school superintendents who will be able to be part of discussing a real threat to our community, to our children, and that is the fentanyl crisis that is all over our country, but has definitely had a huge impact right here and a direct impact. So we welcome you and we thank you for being here. As we get started, let's stand, please, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll open up with a prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let's pray, please. Lord, thank you for a beautiful day in which we can gather and talk about a very important issue in our community and for our students. As we start this school year, we would ask for your richest blessing upon all of our schools. We pray that you will bless and strengthen the teachers who have prepared so hard and are now adjusting to students being back in the classroom. We pray that you'll place a hedge of protection around all of our schools and our children, especially, Lord, today we think of the threat of fentanyl. We pray that you'll protect us and help us to do a good job of warning our students and keeping them safe. Today, our hearts definitely go to Hawaii, and we pray for your blessing upon the families in Hawaii that have been touched by tragedy. We pray all this in the name of our Savior. Amen. You can please be seated. We're going to go ahead and make some introductions. Today primarily is a discussion with, as I already mentioned, board presidents and superintendents. We also have some representatives from public health. We have some representatives from charter schools. And so even though there are some public folks that are here, this discussion is primarily for those that are executive leaders in education. And so we'd ask you, if you're observing, to just kind of note that you're here as a guest, and we appreciate you being here, but this is going to be an important discussion that we have. I want to thank School District 11 for hosting us. By the way, my name is Jeff Anderson. I'll be moderating this discussion. I work for Congressman Lamborn, and I work here in our district office in Colorado Springs. But Mr. Gall and Dr. Melpacum, thank you very much for hosting us. Mr. Gall has been the superintendent here in District 11 for, is this your second year? Is that correct? Starting a second year. So welcome back to Colorado Springs. We have an Air Force Academy graduate, and we're glad that you're back home. And then also, Dr. Melpacum, you've been serving as a board president for 4 years. Is that correct?
No, 2 years. My fourth year on the school board.
Fourth year on the school board?
Fourth year on the school board, 2 years as the president
Well,
of the
you've
board.
done a great job, and we thank you. And then, of course, this is Congressman Doug Lamborn. So Congressman Doug Lamborn has been serving the 5th Congressional District for getting really close to 20 years. Before that, he served in the Colorado Senate, the Colorado House of Representatives. He raised his 5 children in Colorado Springs schools, and so he has a vested interest in this discussion. And Congressman, we thank you for hosting this and for calling this group together. We're going to go ahead and do some introductions, and these introductions will be self-introductions. Wendy, we're going to start with you. And so if you would just stand, introduce who you are. So we need your name, the position you serve, and then the school district that you're in. Please.
Dr. Wendy Berhanzel, proud superintendent, Harrison School District 2. Valerie Skates, Executive Director of Student Success and Wellness, which is now going to be Future Ready, and District 11.
Ginger Haber, Superintendent of D20, and I'm very excited to be here.
Ginger, welcome, by the way, to our community.
Thank you.
Peter Hiltz, Superintendent in District 49 on the east side.
My name is Matt Weiss. I'm an ambassador and co-founder of the X Foundation, currently fighting the fentanyl epidemic. Thank you.
And I'm Matt Riviere. I am an affected parent. I lost my 2 boys to fentanyl.
JJ Frazier, Vice President of the School Board, Harrison School District 2, and home of the 2023 Colorado Superintendent of the Year.
Bless you, and thank you. Dan.
Hi, everyone. Dan Schallert, President of the Colorado League of Charter Schools. We're a membership organization that represents the interests of the 269 charter schools that now exist in Colorado. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. My name is Susan Whelan. I serve as the El Paso County Public Health Director, and in El Paso County there's 8 towns and cities, so 757,000 people in our county.
John Graham, President of the Board of Education of District 49, finishing my 8th year on the board.
am Bobby Leahy. I am the lead nurse for District 11. Nicole Herrera, I run the Project Aware Grant for District 11, which is a substance use prevention and mental health grant.
My name is Corey Williams. I'm the president of Harrison School District 2's Board of Education. I heard what JJ said, superintendent of the year.
We'll come to the back here, please. Would you go next?
Angelina Sierra Sandoval, Director of Government Affairs for the Colorado League of Charter Schools.
Good morning, Casey Summers, Superintendent of Lewis Palmer School District 38 in Tri-Lakes area.
Good morning, Lisa Zimprich, Director of Mental Health for Fountain Fort Carson School District 8.
We are thrilled that you would represent the Fountain Fort Carson School District as well, so thank you for being here. And then finally,
Maggie Okana, Behavioral Health Planner for Public Health.
very good. And is there anyone on the side who's with a school district that needs to be introduced as well, please? I think that we've got everyone covered. I want to thank the media for being here so strongly today. Media's presence is very important because as we start a new school year and as we talk about the fentanyl crisis, any means that we can use to get this message out and to warn our students, to warn our community. And so all of you media outlets, thank you very much for being here and being part of today. One last introduction. Congressman Lamborn has a number of different staff members that are here. If you would raise your hand, please. We are here to serve you. And if there's any way that we can answer your questions or serve you or point you to the bathroom, whatever we can do to help, we're here to serve. Congressman, would you get us started with some of the comments regarding some legislation that we're offering, please?
Well, absolutely. Today, it's an honor to be here with so many educators, administrators, and public health officials from all over El Paso County and actually the state of Colorado. This is such an important issue. We're all so concerned about our children. We love our children. We want the best for them, and yet we have this fentanyl crisis that has been a scourge in our country and, of course, in our state and in our county. It's probably the most important emerging healthcare issue that we have facing us today, the way that it has just snowballed so dramatically. Thank you for District 11 hosting us in your great facility here. We appreciate that. In 2022, 874 teenagers aged 13 to 18 were hospitalized for overdoses across the state of Colorado. And the overwhelming majority of these were fentanyl-related overdoses. So we know it impacts people all over Colorado. And sad to say, in 2022, 96 overdose deaths in El Paso County involved fentanyl. One life is too many, but that's 96 just last year. Today we're joined by family and friends of young adults who lost their lives to fentanyl. We recognize the lives of the sons of Matt Revere and George Gershow, who established the X Foundation in honor of his son Xavier, and we'll have someone speak on his behalf as well. So thank you for being here as well. Initiatives like the X Foundation and the Fake and Fatal campaign are a great way to begin to address this issue, but it's only the start. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do in Congress and what we are doing, but so much depends on also what happens at the local and state level. So this is a team effort. We all have to do everything we can. And I think that's why we're all here today and why we care so much. We have reports from the DEA that China is the main source of fentanyl-related substances which are trafficked into the United States, the precursors. China remains the primary source of these precursors, which are then synthesized and processed by, among others, Mexican drug cartels for sale into the United States. So we have a Congressional Fentanyl Caucus, which I'm a member of. We're doing many things, everything we can think of to address this crisis. This summer, I reintroduced a piece of legislation with my friend Joe Neguse from Boulder, the Protecting Kids from Fentanyl Act. And what this bill would do is allow states to use $146 million in grant funding through the Department of Health and Human Services to supply Narcan and life-saving training to educators and students. Colorado received $2 million from this grant source last year and could receive even more next year. And if the bill passes, if and when the bill passes, the funding is immediately available. It could be used by all types of schools at all levels, elementary, middle, high school, to do several things. Purchase Narcan, provide Narcan training for school nurses, teachers, administrators, and school resource officers, and provide fentanyl awareness classes and materials to students. So to summarize, it has three goals: educate, train, and equip. Data shows that last year, 92% of individuals who died from drug overdose in El Paso County died prior to being transported to the hospital. So this indicates that Narcan wasn't administered in these unfortunate cases, or at least administered in time. It is a life-saving medication. So it's imperative that we educate students to not take these substances in the first place, but if something happens, there is a possible solution or antidote that can help in many cases. So that's what we're doing at the federal level, but I really want to hear what's happening at the local level, because without this, you're the closest to the children and the students. And so your involvement is so critical, and I look forward to hearing about the ideas and the measures and the possible solutions that you've all been working on. Thank you, and Jeff, back to you.
Congressman, thank you. And it was out of a meeting like this that this legislation came in the first place. So we're really following up on a roundtable that we had with law enforcement. And when law enforcement was able to give us some of the data, then we realized, okay, well, we need to at least take some action. So we believe today will be really helpful just in so many different levels, including our awareness of how we can best support our schools. But Congressman, we also want to recognize that with all those statistics, this is not just about numbers. This is very real people. And so we have a representative from District 38, Matt Riviere, who had lost two sons. And something that we can be aware of is that most people who are taking fentanyl are not even aware that they're being poisoned by fentanyl. And so they think that maybe they're getting a Skittles, or they're getting M&Ms, or they're getting some other pill. And so that's what makes it so insidious and so dangerous. But Matt, would you please tell us some of your story so we can just understand that this hits close to home right here in our community?
Microphone, or do I need?
Why don't you stand right there, please? And I kind of address these guys, but everyone else will be able to.
All right.
Well, you know what? Maybe this would be better.
You sure? Okay. Well, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Matt Riviere. Thanks, Congressman Lamborn, for having me back out. As I mentioned in the introduction, I lost my two sons, Andrew and Stephen, to fentanyl poisoning in 2021. Andrew was 21 and Stephen was 19. They died together in their bed here in Colorado Springs, side by side, just like they would be sleeping in my home when I'd go in to give them a kiss goodnight. I use the word, and I think it's appropriate, poisoning. And Jeff, I appreciate you bringing that up. There are overdose deaths. Certainly people that are addicted to fentanyl and are knowingly taking fentanyl, they may OD. In my boys' case, and with the affected families that I work with, many of them were poisoned. And what is that? That they took a drug, bad choice, but it was laced with a lethal amount of fentanyl. So I don't look at that as an overdose. I look at that as a poisoning, that these cartels have taken this drug, made it look real, and have infiltrated the United States with Oxy, Percocet, Vicodin. It's being found in Adderall, which is incredibly scary. 98% of illicit street drugs, according to the DEA, are laced with fentanyl. The newest statistic with the DEA is that 60% of counterfeit pills contain a lethal dosage of fentanyl. And what's a lethal dosage? About 10 to 15 grains of salt, if you can picture that, is enough to kill an adult. And when these drugs are made in Mexico, like the congressman was sharing, there's no quality control. Their goal is simply greed. Their goal is money. Their goal is to get our citizens hooked on fentanyl and to create a big money-making enterprise. And they've done a great job of doing that. In 2021, the year my boys died, the year that Matt's friend Xavier died, there were over 107,000 drug-related deaths in America. 70% of those were attributed to fentanyl. So I want to give you a visual of what that would look like. Imagine a 737 airliner, fully loaded, going down every day of the year into the ground. If that happened in America, That would be on the front page news every single day. It would be on the nightly news every single night. But that's what's happening in America right now. We're losing more people to fentanyl every day than a 737 being fully loaded. Those are the numbers. Those are the statistics. And you may know some of these already, so just I bear you to bear with me. But fentanyl is now the #1 killer in America of adults 18 to 45. More people are dying from fentanyl-related deaths than COVID, car accidents, cancer, and suicide. That's the state of our country right now. And those are based on 2020 numbers. They're only getting worse. When I go out to some of the schools, and I am so grateful for District 11. I was just at District 11 Friday talking with their gym and health teachers. I spent a day and a half at Mitchell High School, where we lost a 15-year-old girl at her desk last year. She passed right in front of her classmates. This packet of sugar is my visual. If this was pure fentanyl, we would lose 1,500 people if it was a lethal dosage to each of them. In Colorado last year, there was a bust of 114 pounds of pure fentanyl found on I-70 outside of Georgetown. One bust, that's the one they caught. To give you an idea, 114 pounds of fentanyl, if it was administered as a lethal dosage of 2 milligrams, would kill over 25 million people. And that's over 4 times the population of Colorado. That was one bust. Imagine what's gotten through to our country. And now let's make it real with my kids. Were my kids drug addicts? No. Were they on their way to be there? Possibly. They experimented. They did pot. They moved to high-potency THC. And then the night they died, they decided to try Oxy, and it killed them both. When I was a kid, I've never done drugs. I wanted to be a pilot for the United States Navy. I never was around that, but people were around that. And people did coke, and they did pot, and they dropped acid, and they didn't die. Bad choice, but they woke up the next day. Kids today, they're not waking up. One bad choice, and their life is gone. And when I go into the schools to talk to the students, I just have a conversation with them. I don't PowerPoint the kids. I tell them my story. My kids were normal kids making bad choices, stumbling through life. They had some mental illness. My oldest was bipolar. My youngest struggled with anxiety and depression. COVID only exacerbated those conditions. They were medicating. They were hurting. They were in pain. And they decided to try something and dial it up for marijuana. And we're seeing the statistics that marijuana is early marijuana use is one of the greatest indicators of opioid abuse. And here we are in a state that has legalized marijuana, and high-potency THC is certainly a big hot topic right now that we're attacking here in the state. But those are the precursors to opioid addiction in many, many cases. And so it's really affecting everybody, whether you're on the right or the left, socioeconomic background, racial background, it doesn't matter. This does not discriminate. This is killing so many people every year. And so it's our goal to really raise awareness, to share the stories. You hear these statistics, they're very faceless, 107,000, 70%. You can get bogged down in the numbers. But then when you see people's faces and you see the lives that are affected, not only my boys are lost, but it's affected their mom, it's affected me, it's affected their friends that now are heading towards marriage where my boys can't be at their weddings. They can't be there to celebrate, and that's a loss that's going to last forever. And so I appreciate the time to just give you a quick snippet of my story. Again, normal kids making bad decisions. My youngest was a 4.2 plus GPA, graduated high school with an AA degree, was a great wrestler, coached by people around the Olympics, went to D38, wrestled up in D38, 26-0 his 8th grade year, streamed on YouTube. But he made a stupid choice, and he'd be the first one, if we could bring him back, to admit that. Your kids are going to make stupid choices. And I hope that you really take that time to talk with them and to educate them. I would tell you, you need to be the smartest people in the room when you're talking to your students. You need to know these facts. They need to roll off your tongue. You need to have these courageous conversations with your students. You need to make sure that your teachers are aware that they're engaged with their kids, that they're able to engage those kids. Because mental health is on the rise, as we know, and there's an absolute tie to opioid abuse, and fentanyl is destroying these children's lives. From me, if you want to talk to me after, again, I'm working with D11 and I'm going into the schools. I'm happy to go in there on my own time to help educate, inform, and warn your students so they don't wind up like my two boys. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, thank you. Matt came to our office and he's determined to make sure that such a awful tragedy isn't repeated, and he's bringing something meaningful out of it. So thank you for all of your action. We're also going to have Matt share a little bit about personalizing this as a friend. Before we do that, I want to begin some of the discussion that includes our board presidents and our superintendents, just so we have an idea of what you're experiencing on the ground, what you're doing that's already working, and something else that may be helpful. And so let's just open this up. Let's let it have a little bit more of a discussion, and then Matt will have you share here in just a little bit. I'm wondering, Mr. Gall, if you'd be willing to start and just kind of tell us what you guys are experiencing in District 11, please.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman Lamborn, for this opportunity, Jeff, for helping coordinate this. First, I want to really thank all the area superintendents and board presidents. Drugs and fentanyl know no boundaries. We have a school choice system in the state of Colorado, and we are happy for that. And unfortunately, that means that the drugs will cross boundaries in and out of our schools, no matter how hard we try. So I appreciate the educate, equip, and train opportunity that Congressman has spoke to. We have a very similar strategy. We seek to educate our children on the challenges that exist in the space of their social world. Secondly, we promise to our community drug-safe school experiences. But when that education and that drug-free school space fails to actually be realized, we have to have the resources on hand to ensure that we can save lives. This is tremendous legislation. Public schools have become the clearinghouse for unfunded mandates. We appreciate having legislation that gives us the opportunity to have the resources aligned to be sure that we can be that last stop experience. An anecdotal dose of Narcan saves lives. We know it. We see it happen. It's happened in my schools. It's happened in Wendy's schools. I know it's happened in Ginger schools as well. I'm not sure if we've made it all the way up to Casey there yet or not, but I know that he is also equipped and ready to do it. We have staff that are prepared. We love this type of legislation. It gets us the feeling that we're all in this together. This is a national crisis that we're feeling at a local level. Having this type of legislative support from Congressman Lamborn and others allows us to be prepared to ensure that all our students are given not just that first chance, but sometimes that second chance. High school is supposed to be about learning through your failure and experience. Here's a chance for us to be sure. Matt, thank you so much for your story, and I'm so sorry for your loss. And thank you for being a part of our team to make sure that our kids are learning through your experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gall, do you have any story? Has Narcan been used, and has it been effective in actually saving a life in school?
Yeah, we have used Narcan. I don't want to go into the individual situations. Those are, personal, but we have used them. Our staff is trained. We have them. I was thinking of the analogy of 20 years ago, we figured out every building, every federal or local building needs defibrillators. Right? We wished everybody was heart healthy, yet people have heart attacks at work all the time. And we realized we save lives by having defibrillators. Now we don't think twice about it. Let's not think twice about having Narcan accessible to every school nurse, every front office staff, every security guard. Every administrator in the building needs to be trained to know how to use that and deliver it.
And Michael, let me just say, and maybe this is unnecessary to say, but unless and until the federal legislation passes and making some more funds available, you've got to carve out money in your own budgets to do this anyway. Whatever happens at the federal level, you've got to do it at your school district level no matter what. So, and maybe you already are, and that would be wonderful, but you've got to do it no matter what.
Yes, that's great. Is there someone else who has a comment as far as what's already happening? Wendy, if you don't.
We're similar, that we have it in our middle schools.
Let me work on the logistic. Do we have a microphone overhead that's going to work, or should we just use this microphone, please?
It'll
sound better with that one.
Wendy, let's use this one, please.
So we're similar. We have it in our middle and high schools. We're adding it to our buses and to every sport. But I think we need to understand this isn't a school issue. It's a community issue. It's not enough to train our kids. It's not enough to educate our kids. We have to educate our community, because when our kids go home, their parents are not understanding that those Skittles they brought home are laced with fentanyl. And we're getting that into our community, and it's deadly. I do have a few comments about, could you add to the legislation a few wish list things? One is, can we make it so it's not a grant where schools have to apply? Can they just give us the money? Because my district writes every grant and we get it, and that's great. But not every district has a grant writer who can do that. But all kids in districts need it. So can we just get the money from the state passed on to schools automatically? Second, can we add a piece where we can buy nitrate gloves? We do searches, and we know that fentanyl is so deadly that when we're searching backpacks, if someone comes across it, they could be needing Narcan, and we don't want that. So the nitrate gloves we have bought for every search we do of a backpack or a student, very expensive. And then one more thing, since you're writing my notes down, let me think. My last thing is, can we consider funding for drug dogs to do sweeps of parking lots and lockers? If we can get it out of our schools, we can save hundreds of lives. We already do drug dog searches in some of our districts. We do in D2. Very expensive, very hard to find the dogs to come in. But if we would have the funding and we did random drug dog searches of districts who wanted to do that, we could probably save lives proactively versus having to use Narcan.
So you would be suggesting just a random search to get people's attention, not necessarily an everyday thing,
No,
but a
just
random.
like once a semester, just
Yeah,
to see
yeah.
if we have it in our schools and get it out.
Excellent suggestions, thank you.
Very good suggestions. Could you follow up a little bit? Tell us what you're experiencing on the ground. You mentioned Skittles. Give us a better idea. How is it that some of these candy-looking things are filled with fentanyl? Just what's happening, please?
We have used Narcan a few times, but I will tell you our best deterrent is our kids. So our kids, when they know how dangerous it is, they share with each other and they stop it from happening, or they let us know that someone has something bad in their backpack, and then we know to go after and look out. If you have not seen the pictures of what this drug looks like, you could easily take it yourself, because how they're lacing it into candy, into gummy bears, into everything that our kids just pop in their mouths. And it's crazy, but quit putting things in your mouth that you didn't buy or you don't know where it came from.
That reminds me of the story of Xavier. I mean, he didn't think that he was taking anything that would be dangerous. He thought he was taking something to help him with cramps after a basketball game or something. It only took half a pill, and it was still enough to kill him. Maybe now, Matt, is a good time for you to share. So Matt is a product of District 20. He's a graduate from Pine Creek High School himself. Back in my day, I graduated from Rampart. There was no Pine Creek. As a matter of fact, there was no Liberty. There wasn't even a Discovery Canyon. It was just way back. But now, if you would just tell us the story of how you had lost a best friend, and again, just kind of we personalize this.
All right. So, as he said, my name is Matt Weiss. I was born and raised in Colorado Springs. I grew up in the District 20 school system. I would consider myself a fairly normal kid. I sat there and played lacrosse, went to school, called it a day, and rinse and repeat. And I will say that Colorado Springs as a whole, thanks to congressmen and to superintendents, schools always felt extremely safe, and the city always felt extremely safe. That was until 2021 in March. I lost my best friend Xavier to fentanyl, and Xavier was similar to me, a normal kid. He was an athlete. He was a musical prodigy. He would pick up an instrument and learn it in a week and a half time. And yeah, he took a Percocet pill that he thought would alleviate his pain from basketball practice. And that pill turned out to be 99% fentanyl and 1% cocaine, which is 100 times over the lethal limit. And yeah, that is why I'm here today, and that's why I'm such a large part of the X Foundation. I'm a co-founder along with his father and some other of his closest acquaintances, and I'm also involved in planning of events for that organization. So yeah, that is something that has occurred, and as Matt had also said, when this has happened to me, and I did my own research after the fact, I was very surprised to see that it is the leading cause of death for kids 18 to 45. And previously, I never even heard of fentanyl. And my dad is a paramedic. And so I'm pretty used to knowing a lot of different things in that world. Never heard of it before. And that's what sent me down such a path like this. And that's why I'm here today.
Before you sit down, Dr. Wendy mentioned that students are such a key part of education for this. Give us your opinion as a recent high school graduate. What's the best way for us to get students equipped with some of this information?
I definitely think, first of all, getting the noise out there. Like I said, I didn't know what it was. I know a lot of my friends didn't know what it was. So the first thing is some exposure. Second, I know we touched on this with Matt, is kids are going to make mistakes, especially in high school. Whether you are the best kid in the world or whether you are considered not be the best kid in the world. High school is where mistakes happen, and high school is where you are meant to grow and become the best version of yourself. And so I think tools like Narcan and even fentanyl testing strips should be available because, I mean, let's face it, we're not going to be able to stop every kid from taking something or making a mistake and experimenting. But we can assist and provide tools that will help eventually save their lives.
Matt, thank you. Thank you very much for being here, and thanks very much for sharing. Does anyone have any follow-up questions you want to share with Matt a little bit more or hear more?
So
Yes.
I'm wondering, the pill that you mentioned?
If you don't mind identifying yourself for us, please, could you just tell us who you are?
I'm sorry. My name is Carrie Payne. I work here in D11. I'm somebody with 27 years sobriety, so this is something that is rather near and dear to my heart. So I'm sorry for your loss. But my question is this. You mentioned that your friend took a pill, and I'm wondering, was that a prescribed pill or he got that from someone?
That pill was not prescribed. He did believe it to be Percocet. It was pressed in the shape and with the imprintation of a Percocet pill. So that is why, along with Matt, I agree that we should be using the term poisoning. It's no different than if you order a coffee at a coffee shop and you ask for 2 cream and a sugar, and instead of putting sugar in their coffee, they put 2 grams of fentanyl. It's poisoning at the end of the day. And
Did I get it from my doctor or the pharmacy, or did I get it from my friend or my friend's friend or my friend's mother?
it was not prescribed.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just think that's kind of a really valid point.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So what had happened in this case is a friend, another basketball player, had shared it. Is that correct? And so there's even only a half a pill. It didn't come from a pharmacy. And so now we're coming back to recognizing what can you do. Now, from what I understand, and Matt, you can be seated. Thank you very much for that. What I'm understanding is on the ground that there's some scary recklessness of kids who are having pill parties or something where they're taking anything and putting it into their mouth. Maybe some of you are more familiar and you can speak toward this. Are kids taking some reckless steps to expose themselves to some pills that really are very dangerous? Would someone speak toward that for me, please?
So they're going after our kids. And it was Wendy, is that right? So if you go home and Google rainbow fentanyl, okay, Oxycontin, Blue M30, that's what killed my boys. Now what the drug dealers are doing is they're making them look colored. Rainbow fentanyl, Google the image. First time I saw it, I actually had a visceral response of, oh, that looks good. It looked like sweet tarts. That's what they're doing to the drug supply. They're trying to entice these kids to take this where it looks attractive. They have these pill parties, like Jeff said, and they tried that. The kids might swear on their mother's grave that they know where these drugs came from. They're good. I know the supplier. The bottom line, we just talked about 98% of street drugs are laced with fentanyl. It really is Russian roulette with 3 bullets in the chamber. That's actually better odds with that than what you're going to get with fentanyl. And so they're also flavoring these pills too. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do whatever they can to addict our children, to make it look enticing and get them hooked on this drug, knowingly or mostly unknowingly.
Wow, Matt, thank you Dr. Melpacum, you had something else that you wanted to say.
Well, first of all, good morning. And we are delighted, and it's a pleasure to have all of you here and host this event out here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, Congressman, for being here and sponsoring this legislation. As everybody has articulated clearly here, this is a serious, grave situation that we are facing at this point in time. Kids are minors, and I know that an audience member out there asked the questions. Adults sometimes make mistakes. Kids in their youth sometimes make reckless choices. And it may not be a prescribed pill, but in the some student out there, a fellow student or a colleague that they are associated with may provide them something that they think is going to help them actually relieve stress or relieve pain or prepare them, stay up late and prepare for the next test. And in the course of making that choice, they end up losing their lives. So we need to be able to provide an opportunity, a second choice for these students. First is the education of these students and to make sure that they don't make these reckless choices. But in the situations where these students do make those choices, that we are able to intervene and provide them that second opportunity. So Mr. Rivier's kids would have had that second opportunity if somebody had intervened. And the same thing, personal stories like these have an impact. When you serve on the school board, the worst feeling or the worst, what keeps me up at night is getting a phone call from our superintendent saying that one of our students were lost, whether it is through drugs or through any other means, because the safety of our students is the number one paramount issue that we face. And when you look at the minimal dosage that can cause this kind of impact on our kids, we got to be able to stop this at this time. So thank you for providing this legislation and also providing the supports and resources. So sometimes from the school board perspective, it becomes frustrating when there are unfunded mandates. This is something that's got teeth behind it, that we do not have to look into our budget to provide the support and resources, even though we do at this time. District 11 is prepared to handle this issue. In each one of our schools, our school security officers are trained. In spite of all those trainings, we have lost 3 students. That was the number that was shared by our chief communications officer over the last couple of years. We want to make sure that all our school resource officers are trained, and this Narcan is available to save lives. Thank you.
And Dr. Melpacum, if you have any suggestions, we really want to hear the kind of suggestions that you guys brought. This is very helpful. So thank you for your compassionate perspective in bringing that. We'd like to hear from others. Yes, please, Dale.
Make a point of clarification on a previous question that you noted. I'm sorry, but the mechanics sometimes of funding through legislation can be complicated. So I was just going back and forth with our legislative director in DC. The way this grant would work is the state of Colorado would apply for the grant, and then they would distribute the funds to the schools and school districts. So it would not require a school or school district to grant write for this grant money. Does that make sense? So just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thanks for that clarity. Yes, please. Would you mind coming up here so we can, I'm sorry.
And the reason why so I am Bobby Leahy, and I am the lead nurse with District 11, and you are Wendy, correct? She made a request of things to add to that funding, and we actually have Narcan in our schools, and it was a big push to get that all in there. During that, we learned that every school, if you have Narcan in the school, you must also have an AED. So we funded that. District 11 funded for those AEDs that were still, we had a handful of schools that did not have them at that time. Then when you go through the training and you learn how to help a student or a person, you give them Narcan, but you also are required to give them breathing. You want to help them because that is why they are dying. They cannot take a breath. So who wants to do that? Because once I put my mouth on your mouth and you're dying from fentanyl, now I have a direct exposure also to fentanyl. So District 11 provided the funds for us to put ambu bags in every single one of our schools. So we're at that point. That should also be included in some of the funding that the state could provide to us. Our ambu bags, they're not expensive. I think I spent about $15 to $20 on each one, but they're a one-time use. So once it's used, I have to throw it away, which I would want to even if it was a multiple-time use, because it has now also been exposed to fentanyl. So these are some of the complications that you look at when you are trying to save a person's life. It's not just, I'm going to give you Narcan and you'll be okay. It's way deeper than that. And so I think that that should be part of the consideration as well. So thank you for letting me express.
As a follow-up, if you can go a little further, you're helping us understand that exposure to the poison of fentanyl could be something like searching a bag and accidentally touching it with sweaty fingers, or helping save someone else's life. Just help us understand, is that accurate? People can really, even with the best intentions, they can be exposed to this kind of poisoning.
That's the way I understand it, yes. And it makes sense to me. I mean, if there's powder residue from a pill that a person is touching, they can get that, maybe they get it on their hand, they rub their eye, you now have fentanyl into your system, right? You didn't have to lick your fingers, but you put it into your eye. And the biggest thing about the rescue is that I can give you Narcan and hope that it works, but if I don't provide you breathing, then you're not going to, the Narcan really isn't going to help you.
Wow,
I mean,
thank
it
you.
might, but we want to keep you alive until it works.
Yes.
Can you clarify what you meant by AEDs?
Atrial defibrillator,
The defibrillators?
defibrillators,
Okay.
yes. Sorry.
Because their heart might be stopped?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that help. Someone else have comments to make? We really want to hear from you, so please don't be shy. Anybody? Yes, please, Corey. Corey, come on up here. This is also being live streamed, and so sorry. We got
No problem, Jeff. Again, my name is Corey Williams. I'm the president of Harrison School District 2. One thing that we are not short of in Harrison School District 2 is heart. And so as much as you can touch the heart of your community, that's who pours into us. And so I just want everybody to know that who you see in the room, this is just the beginning. And so you have to convey that message that it affects everybody. It affects everybody's children, and young or old, it can happen. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Who else? Yes, please.
Hi, Nicole Herrera with the school district, Colorado Springs School District 11. Like I mentioned before, I run the Project Aware grant, which is substance use prevention as well as mental health. So I think it's critical that we mention, and Matt started to, how closely tied substance use disorder and mental health are. And we are seeing students experimenting earlier and earlier. We do, in our district, happen to partner with 5 mental health agencies that come in and provide services to our students during the school day, one of those being Children's Hospital here in Colorado Springs. They specialize in offering substance use prevention, well, it's substance use disorders, what they call it, groups, for students who have self-identified as using drugs, who need support, and they're packed. And we have those in middle schools and in high schools. And the nature of addiction is trying to numb and escape from something. People don't want to die, right? Either by suicide or by overdose. So making sure that we have those preventative supports is also really critical. And it feels like there's so many prongs, like how much can we add to this legislation, right? But that's a big piece of it, of making sure we understand what's underlying for people seeking out drugs and our youth seeking out drugs.
Help us understand the role that you serve, and how many other mental health directors or care providers are in the different schools.
Sure, so I coordinate this grant, so that's my role, and in that I've visited with schools, right? We have tier 1 services, tier 2 services, which, yeah, I was gonna go into that, right? And even thinking of how do we combat this, it is layers of support that we need to be offering to our community. So tier one, we have our counselors in all of our schools. Elementary schools have counselors. And what is baseline that students need to receive in order to function during the school day? Tier 2 services are students that are identified as needing a little bit more support. They cannot access the education like 85% of our population can, so they need groups. They might need some check-ins. They need some extra support. Tier 3 is theoretically maybe 15% of our 5% of our population who need intensive supports. So if we think of that with mental health, I've been coordinating tier 3 mental health supports. So that is partnering with outside agencies because our counselors and our social workers in our buildings have full-time jobs and expectations, and they aren't necessarily equipped with clinical skills to support students who have substance use disorder or have really high needs that can't be managed with the services that we provide in the school day. So those partners will come into our schools. We work with the schools to identify and triage those students that might have barriers to accessing mental health outside on their own if parents have multiple jobs, if they are uninsured. This grant really supports those kiddos in covering the costs. We do bill insurance, and Children's Hospital has been our major support in working with substance abuse and substance use within our schools, and that is as young as middle school. Another piece, is having those conversations with parents. So it's not a gotcha, you're in trouble conversation that we need to be having, and we don't want it to be after the fact, right? Wanting to be proactive of having conversations early and often with your students, not when they're headed out the door to prom and say, hey, don't take anything that you don't know what it is. We have to be versed, we have to be literate in what this is. So making sure that our parents are involved as well. And it's just so complex, right? A lot of times students who are experiencing substance use or substance abuse, they're seeing it in their home. So it is a community issue. Our emphasis is on our students, but we know that, the depth, it is deep, that it runs the issues that we see.
Yeah, I just want to double up on some of Nicole's comments and connect them to Dr. Malpacum. This idea of unfunded mandates. We are all doing tremendous work on the mental health crisis that we see not just in El Paso County, but across the broader United States. But we have to communicate that public schools cannot solve this alone. If I have 250 to 1 as a ratio, and Wendy has 225 to 1, and Ginger has 275 to 1, that is not the difference maker for the quality of the care that exists. Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports have to have very strong citywide supports through the local health department. I have 3 adult children, all of who have struggled with mental health. Now, if you know, I'm retired military, so I have tremendous health care behind me. Every one of my kids received their supports from my HMO. Not one of them ever received them from the public schools. That is a tier higher than they're able to get when we have school counselors who are having to divide themselves over hundreds of children every day. That is not a recipe for success. It is a recipe to identify greater supports and needs, but partnership is the way that we're going to be able to solve this. This crisis attached to fentanyl, where we're seeing these statistics, are so correlated and interrelated that if we don't address them as a whole, we're going to be playing whack-a-mole for another 10 years. We've been here before. The analogies go on and on. For some reason, no one will accept a student who smells like alcohol at 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody lets a kid walk in with a fifth of Jack Daniels. But we live in a society now where we think it's okay that kids are getting high before school, as long as they don't have marijuana in their backpack. We have to rethink what we think is the correlation between risk and access to recreational drugs. We've been there with alcohol and we made harder decisions. We have to accept a sterner line in Colorado Springs on what we believe are drug-free school zones.
Wow. We hear you loud and clear. Talk more about that collaboration. You talk about a collaboration between city health, children's health, you mentioned it. Is that already happening, or is that something that really needs to be facilitated more?
It needs to be facilitated more. I want to just, first of all, thank every partner that we have, and both Valerie and Nicole can give us the information of who we have. We did an update at a board meeting maybe in February, and we called it the checkerboard. Who is matched to which school? well, we have this partner over here provides 5 mental health providers. We have this one that provides training. We have this one for tier 3 sports. We, as have the other area superintendents, done everything we can to find the solution. The problem is we're all chasing after what I call the purple squirrel. We're trying to find that singular solution of which we hope avoids the tragedy. We have a crisis. The numbers are real. If you see the numbers that are reported at the state level as it regards to mental health, we need really broad initiatives like this Fentanyl Act that says, to the comment in the back, the state of Colorado can apply for the grant and then distribute the resources to every one of the schools. It can't be who's best friends with the new mental health director at Centura. That can't be how we solve it. The last thing we want to be is winning an enrollment because our mental health supports are better than a neighboring district. It should be El Paso County. It should be the state of Colorado. It should be our nation saying this is a foundational part of your tax base. This is an infrastructure conversation. This isn't my child doesn't have that problem, so I'm not interested. Your child will be exposed to this problem. Matt's kids and your friend are no different than my 3 children or anybody's children. If you think your kids are different, pull your head out of the sand and pay attention to the world that you're living in. Get behind this act, get behind all these ideas, and let's work on this collectively together.
Wow, Mr. Gall, thank you. And I see a lot of heads nodding and now a few hands too. So I'll be right to you next.
So I appreciated what you had to share, Michael. So I just spent 5 years in the state of Washington on Ellensburg, and there we developed what was called Kittitas County Health Network, where we had a network of mental health facilitators, hospitals coming together to work together on opioid abuse. We would write grants together. Yes, Ellensburg's smaller than El Paso County. The county, we were starting to help support that network. But as you were speaking, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if, school leaders, if we could come together with Children's Hospital, with some of the checkerboard that you were saying, because I'm sure it's the same in D20 as well, to put together that network. Because when I think about what we were able to accomplish in Kittitas County, there's no reason why we couldn't accomplish that here in El Paso County. And thank you so much, Congressman Lamborn. I really appreciate your initiative, your passion. So terribly sorry for your losses, and thank you for sharing. I would also add, sometimes when federal money comes to Department of Educations like CDE, like the State Department, Washington, sometimes even at that level, they'll decide to put it in a grant. And that's where I would echo what you had to share, Superintendent Wendy, that if there's any way there could just be a real directive of this needs to flow directly to school districts, not a grant now that's being developed by like the Colorado Department of Education. CDE is wonderful, but as Wendy pointed out, some people, some districts often will qualify more readily for grants and some don't. And sometimes D20, because of our current demographics, often we don't qualify for some of those grants that are available. So just wanted to build on that as well.
Very good. And Ginger, thank you for joining our community. The spirit of collaboration is really good. And frankly, Congressman, I'm really encouraged with all of the leaders in education that would start and be here even today for this conversation. And it sounds like our work isn't over. We need to keep gathering people. You had something else you wanted to say, please?
Sure. Again, my name is Susan Whelan. I serve as the El Paso County Public Health Director for you all. And so I wanted to start by saying thank you for your leadership, Congressman Lamborn, and also District 11's leadership. Really greatly appreciate that. We have 17 different school districts in El Paso County with a lot of different charter schools. So the leadership is vast. And I know that we all want to do what's best for our kids. It's complex. And so I just want to emphasize a few things that have already been said. That it's not a school's problem. It is a community problem. These are complex issues that are intertwined. It's not just overdose deaths. It's about behavioral health. It's about mental health. And as we grow as a community, I mean, the needs get more complex, and there needs to be more attention on that. I like what you said also about a lot of education, and that's where we start. We have to raise the level of education related to what is actually happening and how that impacts our community, because it's not just one individual, it's not just one family, it's the entire community with a lot of ripple effects. And getting accurate and credible information is so important. Public health works with numerous different school districts. We put out a data brief, and it has information in there, the basics of what it is. Because the question about this pill that your friend got, could you get it from a pharmacy? No, these are illicit, illegal street drugs. And as what was said too, like in our publication, they look like Skittles, right? So, I mean, these are just some basic images and basic information about, how is it affecting our community. In El Paso County, in the last 12 months, we've had two deaths within the teenage population. And then in 2022, we had 13. That's far too many. And I would say also about the collaboration, we're not going to make any progress unless we collaborate. And that is so key, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. El Paso County Public Health worked with school communities. All of you came to the table about teen suicide prevention. There were some uncomfortable conversations. Why is that happening? We all came because we care about our kids. The same thing also in the collaborations. There are already existing groups. The Child Fatality Review Team, which is led by Public Health and Dr. Kelly, the coroner's office. The most horrible thing to do is to evaluate deaths of 17 years of age and younger. Why do we do this? To look at prevention. And so that's what you're talking about within the teenage population. But it's happening community-wide, and it's happening in all age groups. But how can we work together on harm reduction, prevention, why is it happening, and then the treatment? But it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. It can't just be one thing. And so that's what I would ask is that, we educate. Don't put things in your mouth that you don't know where they came from. I mean, that's a simple message. Wow. Because we don't know what we can trust, right? Prescription and those kinds of things. But if something doesn't look like it looks like some of this, let's do more education. But I serve as a resource as public health, and I'm greatly appreciative to you to raise some of the awareness. I look forward to continuing to work together because you all, I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you deal with day to day on the front lines, because I know we connect a lot. We have communities that care in the city of Fountain. We have a youth substance use prevention program, and we mobilize kids in the efforts. As adults, we don't know everything. We need to mobilize the kids, and we have coalitions and collaborations. So my ask also would be, find out what is out there already, and how can we strengthen it? Because I'll tell you that we already have some of those efforts that are going on. How can you contribute? How can you be present? How can you show leadership? That's what's going to help us not solve the problem, but make progress.
That's great. Do you have more of these packets available here today?
I do, and they're online at elpasocountyhealth.org. And we also provide these through email.
Just say that again. Just
Sure.
tell us the link because of the live stream.
Sure. As a resource, El Paso County Public Health. So it's www.elpasocountyhealth.org. It's on the front page, and if you'll see, also I just want to kind of show you the collaborations that we have related to working on these issues, because they're important federally, at the state level, and also at the local level, because we gotta work together. But I've got Dr. Kelly on here. I got the district attorney Michael Allen. I've got the sheriff Joseph Roybal. I've got Pete Carey, who is the executive director of Justice Services, and I also got Department of Human Services executive director. We work together to put out a data brief, so you all know that we're a resource, because where is our source of information? Shouldn't be social media. Here's some factual information on what's happening. So I would say that please look for that. And if you have additional questions to dig into data, I mean, we're available to work with you. However.
Thank you for that. And again, do you have physical copies here today, or you don't have?
Dennis said that he was going to make some. I don't know if you.
We weren't sure if we have those, so we don't have those available today. But we'll make sure. You know what I'll do is
20 copies for folks.
Great. Wow. El Paso County Health. By the way, did you go ahead, sir?
Jeff, let me add this. When we had our roundtable last year, it was law enforcement centered. And I want to say that I really believe that Sheriff Roybal, the DA, Michael Allen, the chief of police, other sheriffs and policemen from smaller communities like Monument around El Paso County, they're very aware of this. The coroner was there also. They're very aware. They're doing everything they can at the law enforcement and prosecution level. And obviously, that's only a part of the overall solution, but hopefully that interdicts some of the supply coming in or the people making this available and selling this. But I think they're doing a very good job also.
They really are. And Congressman, another reminder of that meeting that we had, you guys didn't all participate or you weren't all invited or there for that. But they said we have really two good tools in our community to be able to get this information out. One is media, and that's why we're so grateful that so many media would be here at the start of a school year. To be able to draw some attention to this is really important. And then the second tool is schools. I mean, this is the one gathering place where all those kids are, and we got to figure out how to maximize that tool. But they're doing a great job, and the collaboration now and asking us to follow up is really helpful. I think we can take, we have time to take one more comment. Is there someone else with something? Tiffany, come on up. And by the way, as Tiffany's coming, there are a couple of people who came in after we did introductions. Lori, would you stand and just tell us who you are, who you represent, and the role that you serve, and then you do the same, Tiffany.
Yeah, Lori Thompson. I serve on the Board of Education for School District 49. I'm the secretary.
Thank you. Was there anyone else who stepped in, did not do the introductions? All right, Tiffany, introduce yourself for us, please.
I'm Tiffany Upchurch. I'm the board president of Lewis Palmer D38 School District. I had two. One is a comment. I want to say thank you for your leadership and your passion and your bravery in taking this on because, as has been said, and I echo it, it is so important that there is partnership with community leaders, with parents, with students, with educators. That cannot be emphasized enough, that it's not just a reactive, it needs to be proactive. And then my question is, what can we do as leaders in our communities on behalf of our communities in advocating for this legislation to pass, is my first question. My second question is $146 million enough?
It's a start. I don't think it's enough. It's a good start, but it's only a start. And I think as the success is seen, and there would be success, there would be a follow-on infusions of money as well. I think people would see it as a good investment. Talk to our two senators. I don't know if they have a companion bill yet or not over in the Senate, but we'll work on that. But this is a bipartisan effort. Myself and Joe Neguse, Republican, Democrat. I think it's a very strong bipartisan thing that everyone who thinks about it for more than 5 seconds is going to agree with and be supportive of. So there's been great support. And so, Tiffany, I think I think the support will be there. I'll push the committee chairman and the people who run the floor to push this along and expedite it that way.
Very good. We're going to kind of get to some closing comments, and so I'm going to offer you guys an opportunity to make some closing comments. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, being part of this. Let's not let this be the end of the discussion. Frankly, I think the conversation can continue even after we're dismissing from this meeting. And we'll be considering what are the best next steps to just continue this kind of collaboration and talk. Dr. Parth, you have some closing comments you want to make?
Yeah, I'll be brief. It's been a productive discussion in my point of view, just having different perspectives up here and sharing some feedback. I'm sure the congressman appreciated all the feedback that we received too. The closing thought from me is it falls on us. We are the adults in the room up here, and it's the responsibility of the adults to step up to the plate and to fight this menace. And I'm glad that the congressman is advancing this legislation, and this is a start, and it's a start in the right direction. Thank you.
Mr. Ball, anything?
I just want to further echo the great thanks. It's been a wonderful conversation. We really believe in the power of unity and collaboration. This is not a county with 16 or 17 school districts. This is a collective conversation, how educators can change outcomes for kids. Thank you to the congressman.
And Congressman, anything?
I didn't even think of this coming in, but I'll mention this little anecdote. I was recently in a jury pool for a trial here in El Paso County, and I wasn't ultimately chosen, but I sat through several days of questions from the attorneys, both sides of the attorneys, from the statements from the judges, and it involved a tragedy of the mother and father were addicted to drugs, apparently. They had fentanyl in their house, and I don't know if they were high or overcome and passed out or what, but their toddler got into the fentanyl and ingested it somehow and died. And so that obviously that brings serious criminal charges, and they were found guilty. Ultimately, followed it in the newspapers, but this is such a new problem, the scope of it and the intensity of it for society. What you do here in this room for high school kids is going to carry forward when they go into young adulthood. And we have young adults, people in their 20s, that don't know these things either. But when they graduate from high school at the age of 18 or so, they'll hopefully learn the lessons and take those with them, and these will be lifetime lessons, and those kinds of things won't happen when they're in their 20s, out in society and on their own. So, but I'm very impressed, so impressed with my associates here on either side of me and everyone in this room with the level of commitment, the level of knowledge and passion and expertise and dedication. I'm just very impressed with every single one of you. You've all contributed something. It really touches my heart to see us working together. And we're in this together, and it is a community effort. Of course, schools are a huge part of the young people's contact in the community and role in the community. So what you do is so critical, and it goes beyond everyone in this room, of course. It's not only on your shoulders, but you do play such a big role, and I'm glad to see the level of person and caring person who is here contributing to a solution.
Indeed. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. I'm going to look to my team and make sure that we've covered everything. Is there anything more we need to say, Chief? I'm getting a lot of thumbs up, so that's a good sign. Out of all the invitations that we send, and even with a short notice, you guys just have really responded, and I thank you from the depths of our heart. Thank you for being here and being part of the conversation. There may be some other folks that aren't here that should be here. We extended invitation to 3 districts that I, for some reason, wasn't able to get through. But out of 10 districts in our community, 7 of them are here today in force. And then if you have contacts at Cheyenne Mountain, Manitou Springs, and Widefield, those are the only ones that I know of that we didn't have representation here. Thanks for coming and representing the state. We also are wanting to include private schools, and so they're going to be part of the conversation as well. But we're really, really appreciative of all of you being here. So handshake, fist bump, hug from me. Thank you. God bless you all. Have a great day.